If you've ever worried about your dog wandering off, getting lost, or just trying to keep them in the yard, today we're taking a deep dive into the SpotOn GPS collar. I'm going to run through cost, features, setup, and do some real-world testing to see how it all stacks up against the competition. Just remember, folks, there's no shortcuts here. To set up your dog for success, you're going to have to train them. Don't just slap on one of these and expect it to work.
If you find this video helpful and you want to see more like it, please take a moment to subscribe or even leave me a comment.
Now, full transparency, folks, SpotOn sent me this for free to check out. No one's pulling on my leash here. These thoughts are my own. SpotOn didn't get any editorial control over this video, but they did ask that I test the collar in a couple ways, and honestly, they made sense. So they asked me to test this collar in a forested area, in open spaces, and in overcast weather conditions. These three testing areas seem pretty reasonable to me because I haven't used any of these collars without doing some testing myself anyways. So let's dig into it. I've been using this collar for a little over 6 weeks now, and I'm pretty happy with the build quality. It's not showing any signs of wear and tear. Now, I do wish there were some other colors available. When I bought the Halo 4 collar, I bought yellow to help with Teddy's visibility. And I really do like the new Blaze Orange they just launched. Ultimately, Teddy's gonna wear some bright colors anyways when we're not home and we're in the woods, so I'm not too worried about the SpotOn collar's color. It just would be nice to see some additional colors or wraps like the competition has. Now, the charger for this is proprietary, but so is everyone else's. I would love to see companies move towards something like a USB-C charger. That way, if you're traveling, you don't have to worry about did you pack or bring the charger with you. However, I can see what they were trying to do here. They're trying to keep it weather sealed and keeping dust and debris and all that other good stuff from getting in, because let's be honest, dogs are gonna swim with these. So let's do a comparison, and we're gonna compare the SpotOn GPS collar to the Halo collar. There are definitely some other solutions out there, but it's not really gonna be an apples to apples comparison, so we're gonna stick with these two for now. And let's start with often the biggest factor, cost. And we're gonna look at it more than just upfront cost. Since the competition, Halo, requires a subscription, let's compare upfront cost to total cost of ownership. This is something I didn't consider when I first bought my Halo GPS collar. In hindsight, I wish I had looked into this a little better because I could have avoided an ongoing subscription. Cost of ownership will vary slightly depending on what features are important to you. SpotOn on their website shows a typical customer's cost of ownership beating Halo at about the 2-year mark. Without real in-depth insights on what a typical customer is, I'll show you how it breaks down for me. This gives both SpotOn and Halo the benefit of their regular sales. For SpotOn, on their website, I visited it quite frequently and I got a $100 off coupon, so the collar for $8.99. Halo is always running a sale on theirs, it seems like, for $50 off, so it is $5.49. You can see it starts to get a little fuzzy here depending on if you want keep out zones, the number of maps you need, if you get a protection plan. The bottom line for me is, if we look at these red boxes, and you keep a simple plan like I do, the total cost of ownership from year 1 and year 2, Halo is cheaper. At year 3, SpotOn becomes cheaper. The less expensive collars like the Boostnik remote collar, this was kind of always a known stepping stone for me, so a $35 purchase isn't a long-term investment. A $549 collar or an $899 collar, I think certainly is, particularly when you're attaching a subscription plan to it. I've been using the Halo collar for 8 months now prior to trying the SpotOn collar, and I don't see stopping using a GPS collar or a in-ground wired fence collar anytime soon. So I certainly see the benefit of looking at cost of ownership because I'm probably gonna keep using these past the 3-year mark. So real quick on features, SpotOn versus Halo. Subscription, not required, but it is optional if you want to get features like real-time tracking, which can be pretty nice if you're trying to find your dog and it's lost. For the Halo 4 collar, it's required. Upfront cost, $9.99 when it's not on sale, $5.99 when it's not on sale. Realistically, you can look at $8.99 versus $5.49. Getting a sale isn't that hard. Total cost of ownership, like we just talked about, 3-year winner, 1 and 2-year winners. So anything past the 3-year mark, the SpotOn collar is going to be less expensive. Where is it made? Well, more than half of my audience is in the United States. So I think being made in America might be important to you. I know when I can, I do try and buy American first. I just wish I didn't dismiss this one so quickly without looking at the cost of ownership when I initially bought the Halo collar, because this is tested quite well. Number of fences. The SpotOn collar has an unlimited number of fences. The Halo collar has only 5 fences on the bronze plan. Keep out zones are included as part of the map making in the SpotOn collar app. Keep out zones on the Halo collar are a $39 beacon, and you need multiple beacons if you want multiple keep out zones. GPS chip accuracy, it's reported at 1.5 meters or about 5 feet for the SpotOn collar. The Halo collar, it's reported at 2.5 meters or about 8. On the GPS updates per second, both companies use a slightly different spec. That's why I didn't put them in line and grade them out, because they're not exactly equivalent. Halo puts theirs at 4 times per second on the collar. They don't tell you how fast they update the app. SpotOn tells you it's every 6 seconds on the app, but it doesn't tell you how often the collar itself updates. Why is updates important? Because if we think about how fast your dog can run in a second, that can be pretty far. So that could impact how far over the boundary they might get. I'm gonna do some testing later in the video, and functionally, I didn't see too much difference in the amount of trigger time these had when I'm running across the boundary. For weight, the SpotOn collar is the heaviest of the group here. The Halo collar came in at substantially lighter. On the collar weight, Teddy weighs 65 pounds, so I'm not too concerned about how much the SpotOn collar weighs. If you have a much smaller dog, that may be a bit much for you. It's just something to consider, because even on a small dog, the Halo collar is pretty heavy. I don't know that I would want to use this on like a 20-pound dog. I feel like that would be a lot of collar. And then last on my feature list is the number of active maps. The SpotOn collar, I have 1 active map available. The Halo collar is as many maps as your plan supports. On the number of active maps, this is the only area that I think I haven't liked the SpotOn collar, and this may come down to my use case, and yours may differ. You can have as many maps as you want, but you can only have 1 loaded on the collar at a time. I actually called SpotOn about this because I was surprised at the way this was configured, and they suggested an interesting use case. They said they had a number of customers who might load a different daytime and nighttime map. While on the Halo collar, I'm limited to 5 maps because I'm on the bronze plan. All 5 of those maps are loaded at the same time. This means my wife, my parents, my in-laws, my brother, anybody can come over and scoop Teddy up when I'm not home and take him for a play date, and they know to just put the collar on and I don't have to worry about anything. With the SpotOn collar, I'm gonna have to set every one of these people up with the app on their smartphone, and they're gonna have to put the collar on and they're gonna have to load a different active map. For a lot of people, I have a feeling that's not a big deal, but it took a lot of arm twisting to get my extended family to make sure the dogs were wearing their collars when they were going outside to play. So if you're like me and you can't, count on everyone having their phone ready to go and load maps when they get your dog in another place, this may be something to consider, because the Halo is the simple solution in this scenario. People can just grab him and take Teddy to play, and I don't have to worry about it. With the SpotOn collar, they're gonna need access to the SpotOn app so they can load the correct map for wherever they're going. All right, let's pause the chatter here and we'll walk through setting up the collar and the boundaries. So this is Teddy. He is our candidate for the SpotOn collar, and we're doing our test fit. And I'm doing this before the prongs are on, because I'm gonna do a little bit of testing with this before I decide I'm using this on Teddy. And I'm quite sure that it's gonna work just fine, but any collar I use, I prefer to have tested quite thoroughly before I stick it on my puppies. So I am pretty happy with that. I get 1 finger underneath. It's not too tight. I am using the PetSafe in-ground fence system here at the house, but we travel a lot. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna spend some time going around the yard, and we are going to set this GPS fence up to exactly match my in-ground wired system. It's gonna save me some time on training, and we'll talk a little bit about what training is in another portion of the video. But let's get the fence set up, and then we're going to try and test some of its repeatability and reliability in some different conditions. All right, so I'm going to start walking the fence boundary, and that is going to map the perimeter for me. If I come across an obstacle like the stone wall here, I can pause it and walk around it and resume again. You can also, on your screen, draw GPS maps, and that's particularly helpful too if you want to pre-set up a map before you go to a location. But since I'm here all the time, this is home, I am going to walk the perimeter and get it exactly where I want it to be. All right, so I just finished walking the fence, and you can see here is my non-walked map, the one that I just drew on a satellite image, and then here's my walked map. They're pretty close, but they're really not the same. The walked map I'm a lot happier with. I know Teddy can get into places of the yard that he has experience with, or it's more detailed, I think, in my opinion. So this, being able to walk the collar around the boundary, in my mind, is the easiest and simplest way to know your dog has access to exactly where you want him to. Let's fetch some real results and do some accuracy testing. I'm going to go through a series of different weather conditions: good weather, inclement weather, and then I'm going to test some forested conditions where there's some heavy canopy above you that might interfere with the GPS signal. So we're here in my driveway doing the first initial checks of the performance of the SpotOn collar, because this is the most crucial spot for me. I am down here by the road. Now I've set my boundary 50 feet back from the road. That might not be possible for you, but at a minimum, you're gonna see just about every one of these collars. So I've got the Pet Safe and Ground Fence, the Halo, and the SpotOn. They're all gonna say at least 15 feet from the road. So I am gonna make sure that I'm happy with how these are triggering, and we're gonna see how consistent they are here in open skies. It's clear, pretty sunny day, no tree cover. So this is best case scenario for pretty much all three. All right, so what is this bucket? This bucket is the theoretical line that if the puppies cross, they will get a warning, and then they will get a vibrate, and then they will get the static shock. So I'm gonna walk repeatedly towards the bucket, and I'm gonna evaluate the consistency of each. Tone, right where I expect it. Tone, tone. Okay, so my in-ground Pet Safe Pet Fence performed as expected. As soon as I hit the bucket, it fired every time, and that's because there's a wire in the ground that doesn't move, there's no drift, there's nothing like that. So I'm gonna do the Halo next, and I know my Halo collar is not gonna be exactly in line with the bucket because I drew it over a GPS image as opposed to walk the line. So that's gonna be a nice bonus point for the SpotOn fence here, as I can get it exactly where I want it as opposed to kind of close. All right, Halo. All right, I think I was off camera. I was about 25 feet past the bucket. We're gonna try that again. Tone. Tone. Warning. So I've done some previous testing with the Halo collar. After my testing today, I'm not super thrilled with it. Twice I was able to walk all the way down by the road before I got any kind of warning. So I'm not thrilled with this today, and I'm gonna have to seriously consider if I continue to use this. All right, so we are on to the SpotOn portion of my testing. I'm expecting it to be more in line with my in-ground fence system since I was able to walk the boundary rather than kind of guesstimate it from satellite imagery. So let's see how it performs. Tone. Tone. Tone, a little advanced to the bucket, but that's not bad. Tone. Tone. All right, we are 5 for 5. That's pretty good. GPS down. Should never be like this, but let's say your collar's on wrong. All right, still tones in the right spot. Still tones in the right spot. Still tones in the right spot. tone. All right, so quick summary. The wired system worked exactly as I expected it to. Triggered in the exact same spot every time as it always has. I have not had any issues in that regard. The SpotOn fence was spot on. It triggered within 5 feet of the bucket every time. I was really happy with its performance. I even turned it upside down as Teddy would not wear it. And it still seemed to be pretty accurate. I might have got a little bit more deviation. I was probably maybe another pace or 2 tops away from the target, but this is not how the collar is worn. This is how the collar is worn with the GPS up. So the Halo collar I've been using for about 8 months now, and in general I've been very happy with it, but this test took a little knock to my confidence here. Out of my 5 initial tests, I managed to walk all the way to the road. So I walked about 45 feet past my target, and I'm not really happy with that. So I'm gonna really keep an eye on this collar's performance and see how it continues to stack up. And otherwise, this may become my new favorite. So we're gonna keep doing some consistency and reliability training in other conditions, and we're gonna see how it goes. So next up is GPS acquisition time. I'm gonna be doing both the Halo and the SpotOn head-to-head to be as fair as possible, same conditions. A little overcast, I've actually got some incoming thunderstorms, so I might be able to do some acclimate weather testing coming up as well, that's the goal. But how am I testing the GPS acquisition time? I'm gonna stand in the back of the garage where there should be little to no GPS signal, at least there wasn't when I did the Halo test initially. And I'm gonna run for the road. I'm gonna run towards the boundary. That's gonna give me about a 100-foot run, and I am a lot slower than my dogs. So this is kind of give me the benefit of the doubt, and we're gonna see how well this goes. We're gonna see if they both trigger where they're supposed to, or if I can get beyond the boundary. All right, so both did really good. They both triggered by right here, right where my wire is buried, right where I set up the fence. So test number 1 is good. Let's do a couple more. Neck and neck again. They both triggered within about a second of each other. And I would say they both triggered within 5 to 10 feet of the boundary. So let's see if we can get a few more in before this thunderstorm really sets in. Oh. Ow. Okay, same thing. But I was gripping those pins kind of hard, so that hurt a little bit. Thank you, Teddy. Lulu is never the issue, huh? Yes. Lulu is my stay close, does not wander dog. Teddy, come. Teddy, come. Oh, that's a good boy. It's a good come. Teddy is a little more stubborn and likes to explore. So, while we've got 2 wired collars, I'm not really worried about the GPS fence for Lulu because she's not a wanderer. So 3 runs in, neck and neck. I would say no discernible difference. Ooh, I really should turn down the shock because that hurts. But in terms of your dog bolting out of the house, 4 for 4, no discernible difference. They're triggering at the same time, within a pace of each other, so 3 to 5 feet of each other. Let's do one more. The rain's not here yet. So in my scenario, 100 feet is more than enough time for the GPS to activate and then start doing its job. So I am thrilled with the performance of both, and the rain's starting to pick up here. So let's do some acclimate weather GPS accuracy testing. So
we're outside in a pretty steady rain. If you can hear it, on the leading edge of a thunderstorm. So this is kind of, your dog might get spooked. They might try and run. We want to be sure the collar works in poor weather. So that's what we're outside doing. And I think I had both trigger. Yeah, I had both trigger again, right here, right in line with my wired fence, which is where, ouch, holding the contacts, which is where I had set the boundaries up here on the road. So poor weather, both collars triggered exactly where I expected them to. All right, so we are walking around the path. Fortunately, I know my two are very well behaved. Now we are in the woods. Not super heavy tree cover yet, so still a little early for me to be full dense tree cover where I'm at. But we got some heavy rain and in light tree cover. And we're gonna see if these trigger where I expect them to. So yep, they both are triggering in the woods pretty reliably, and that's a great sign. We're gonna try and come out once these leaves really pop and repeat this test. So in inclement weather and lightly forested conditions, zero GPS issues with both collars. They both remained accurate and triggered at the boundary. And now I know the SpotOn collar here is supposed to have a forest mode. It's supposed to be more accurate in the forest. So what I'm hoping to find is some discernible difference between the two. Lulu does not love the thunder. She comes running for me. Teddy is oblivious. He wants to sniff for chipmunks. Right, Teddy? Yeah, doesn't care. Lulu, on the other hand, comes running. Both collars triggered in the same location that they did for me when there was no inclement weather. And we got a pretty good rain going on. Hopefully you can hear the thunder in the background. We'll kind of illustrate the point of what kind of conditions we're working with here. And not super forested area. The trees still have not budded yet, so we're gonna try and repeat this test in a week or two when these leaves really pop.
now I didn't spend a ton of time on camera while it was raining and thundering outside because it was a pretty awkward setup. But with multiple runs, I didn't really have any consistency issues with either collar in that heavy raining weather condition. So let's head to our final testing scenario, the rough stuff, dense tree cover, and we'll see how these stack up. So we finally have good tree cover and we can test the collar's accuracy in the woods. And today, we have the reason I got the collars with me. We've got Jackson. And we got the collars because we thought it would be difficult to keep an eye on both him and the dogs at the same time. Because prior to Jackson, we could do basically anything we wanted and pay solely attention to the dogs while they're outside. But now that that's changed, we're using the collars. So first up is the repeatability testing on the SpotOn collar in the woods. We're gonna walk in the woods until I hit my boundary. All right, boundary. And we are, for reference, next to this tree, so let's do a couple more passes. Run number 2, exactly the same spot. All right, I am probably a pace ahead of that tree. So within 3 feet of the first 2 runs. All right, within 3 feet of the first 2 runs again. All right next to the tree. So, in the woods, pretty leafy conditions, pretty good tree canopy, 3 to 5 feet repeatability on runs. We're gonna switch over to the halo collar now. So now we're doing the halo collar.
All right, so I think I know where I was. So I found the spot where this halo collar triggers. We're gonna go for run number 2. And it is certainly not as consistent. All right, Jackson. I try and pull up the app to see where halo collar thinks I am. All right, so it just triggered right where it did on my first time triggering it, but I was able to walk by it by about 15 feet. So in the woods, second run, the halo collar's repeatability appears to suffer. All right, run number 3, halo is good. All right, same spot. All right, same spot. That's good. All right. So, 4 out of 5 runs triggered in exactly the same spot. But that second run, it didn't seem to trigger until I got about 15 to 20 feet past the point I expected it to. So I'm gonna walk around a little bit more with this and see what I can kind of try and discern. So I've done a lot of walking around testing these collars, so much so that Jackson has passed out. All right, so we've done some testing, and what kind of conclusions can we draw? I've been doing a lot of walking around the yard, and I think what I'm experiencing is the halo collar is having a much harder time finding a GPS signal. It's been the start of all of my testing that I seem to go through a boundary. Down at the end of the driveway, I had that issue. In the woods, I've had that issue. So it's when we first come outside, I seem to be able to go through the boundary by 20, 25 feet as it's acquiring or sorting out where it is. The SpotOn collar, I didn't have any of that issue. So I feel like it is more accurate, faster. Once the halo sorts itself out, it is repeatable, but that can be concerning depending on how far from hazards you are. Of the 3 testing scenarios we've run through, I feel like test number 1, open skies down here at the end of the driveway, the SpotOn collar did best. It was more reliable during the testing due to that GPS acquisition issue, or what I suspect is that GPS acquisition issue. Test number 2, where we did in the rain. I saw no issues with the halo collar, and it was a draw. They were both as accurate and as repeatable in that overcast, rainy condition. And then test number 3, kind of out here in the pretty dense forested area, SpotOn collar again. It was more reliable and more repeatable. So with that, let's go back to the studio and we'll wrap up.
On training, I really like SpotOn's approach to training in the app. It's simple, it's straightforward. In the app, they have a help and training section. After setting up the collar, there's 4 easy steps. It's learning the alert tone, where you can preview the sounds, and there are some basic tips and tricks. Learn the static correction, where you will get some starting recommendations and a guide on how to set the appropriate static level. Proof the boundary, basically how you teach and test the alerts of your new boundary to your dog. And lastly, there's an observation step. This is where you get some recommendations on retraining if escapes are happening. And escapes are when your dog crosses the boundary, when they get out of the defined area you want them to be in. So, final thoughts. Would I use this on Teddy? Absolutely. I found it reliable, I found it accurate, I found it durable. I don't have any issues with Teddy wearing this and relying on this to keep Teddy safe. Would I recommend it to you? Yes. However, I would suggest that you do your own cost of ownership analysis. It only takes a few seconds, but I suspect you're going to be like me, and that in the long term, this is the most economical approach to protecting your dog. So I hope you guys found this video helpful in making a decision on which collar might be best for you and your dog. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe for more content like this, and thanks for watching.
Come on, Teddy.